Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And now we've got one of the big ones, my top 50 best songs of 2017. You know, I said on Twitter a few months ago that of all of my year-end lists, this one is always the most complicated because it's by far the most personal. With the constraint of a list of hits or talking about records in aggregate, you've manufactured some distance between yourself and the art. But if you're just going through the list of songs that spoke directly the most to you, regardless of whether they were a single or not, there's none of that separation or barrier. And when you add in the fact that 2017 was a tumultuous year, not just for me, but for most of the world as well, although I did have my own fair share of trying times, it's a little bit unnerving to go through the cutting process and realize how dark it really got at points. There isn't much escapism in this top 50, and what escapism does show up is very much colored by consequences that are just waiting in the wings. Now, I'm not saying it's downbeat. In comparison to the melancholy that colored a lot of last year's list going back to it, there are more pronounced moments of joy and triumph. But it is by far the most unsettled, pulling the least punches, and ultimately producing a psychological profile of my year in 2017 that I'm still not quite sure what to do with. But hey, all these came out from albums that I covered this year, and I wouldn't have spent a month pruning this list down to the form it is right now if I didn't have faith in it, even though I can guarantee there'll be a fair few conspicuous entries that are not here if you're comparing this to other critical lists. So, let's get it started.
You were so loved, you were one of our own, and it's never been the same since you've been gone. All this town still talks about you.
I think entirely too many people forgot that this record and this song in particular came out in January 2017. And I put myself on that list because while this track made my mid-year list, the album itself kind of faded until I went back to it a few weeks ago. But once I did, I was certain that this song in particular deserved a lot of the praise I gave it. Natalie Hemby takes us on a walking tour of a small town's memory of a person and how they were such a figure of note that she wonders if they even remember all that world they left behind and how they've left such an impact. And I truly love about this song is its quiet frankness in the framing. It's all hope against hope and wistfulness in the subtext that Natalie Hemby conveys with understated brilliance and sobriety about the folks in the background who will build up that legend, not the legend itself. Yeah, it's complicated, it's kind of low-key, but it's definitely resonant. All the same, check it out, you probably missed it.
Between Jesus and the devil, there's a path for you and me. Only blood can set you free.
Oh, I'm so happy this made the list. And you all have no idea how close it was, because Only Blood is a nasty little song that probably most find a little bit uncomfortable, with Angaleena Presley underplaying to intensify the genuine menace of the preacher's wife who loses her mind in religious fervor to murder her abusive husband, all against some phenomenal smoky guitar tones and a subtle key change to emphasize that violence, although probably the most transgressive choice is layering that fiery sermon behind the outro. Yeah, I know, I'm a sucker for a good murder ballad, but what makes this song work so damn well is the evangelical setting and the truly haunting atmosphere and subtext. And just like Natalie Hemby's Puxico, way too many people slept on Angaleena Presley's Wrangled and this song in particular. Might want to fix that.
Happy birthday, Johnny, wherever you are. Happy birthday, Johnny, wherever you are.
Alright, look, I'll be the first to admit I wasn't really crazy about St. Vincent's album Mass Seduction. It's not better than the self-titled record or Strange Mercy. It's a pop record that somehow can feel a little bit undercooked even coming from St. Vincent, and yet the truly great songs on that album cut deep, with this being the first that will make this list. Happy Birthday Johnny is the moment of hard sobriety coming in for Annie Clark, the come down after the self-conscious wallow as a pop icon, the confrontation with an old friend and a drug addict who's now living on the streets, who who she now wants to help however she can, but is then accused of just doing so to only feed her own ego and deflect from secrets that she knows he has. And what's all the more potent is that Annie Clark lets the subtext hang as having some real truth to it. Subtext highlighting her own addictive tendencies. Coupled with the minimalist piano and the stunning touches of pedal steel and arranged strings, it's a moment of genuine tragedy punctuating differences in class, fame, and state of maturity, and lets neither character on the song off that hook. In other words, incredible track.
Under the cover of darkness falling, we make the rules till day is dawning. Anything can happen underneath the moonlight. Tonight, 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 tonight.
And speaking of a record that pretty much everybody forgot, including country critics who didn't seem to want to give this return to form the time of day, Little Big Town bring in one hell of an explosive hook for their nighttime escapades, with great harmonic balance in the vocals, a huge driving guitar line that surges through an expansive mix that makes the upcoming party feel so much bigger than it will probably ever be, playing with spacey effects yet blending them well enough in guitar and tight bass work to highlight a world where you're bucking against any internal turmoil with one last night on the town. This was an anthem for really whenever I went out in 2017. Not the only one, mind you, we're to get to them, but it's a damn great one all the same.
When we were young, we said one day, honey, you and I were gonna share a grave. I didn't know it was so soon. No, I didn't know it was so soon.
Okay, come on. As if Ron Gallo wasn't gonna make my list in some form. The surf rock guitar that opens up the song, the killer bass line drenched in the obvious callback to the Rolling Stones, the howling vocals against a lo-fi garage rock mix, and a hook that's just sweet enough to temper the absolute acid in the lyrics, where everything from the kink of the sex to any remaining affection for his partner is utterly dead. Ron Gallo does not frame himself as sympathetic, and good thing too, because his sardonic quips that feeling like a dead man walking in this relationship don't exactly make him sound all that likable. But when the hook is that infectious and the groove is that tight and the sneering energy is this potent, I absolutely cannot pass this up. Again, Ron Gallo is one of those artists on this list who you probably do not recognize, but seriously, if Ty Segall let you down this year for garage rock as he did for me, you'll definitely want to give Ron Gallo a lot of attention.
When will you help me out? Oh, you can't even pick me out of the crowd.
And speaking of artists who flew under the radar for way too many people, look, if you heard Hurray for the Riff Rap in previous years, you probably were expecting something low-key or more driven by the acoustic country folk that characterized their last album, Small Town Heroes. That all changed in a big way with The Navigator, and while we will be talking about the true tour de force from that record later, Hungry Ghost definitely deserves as much attention. The rock-solid bass melody playing off smoky spikes of electric guitar and jagged acoustics emphasizing that ragged groove, and that's before the change-up for the bridge. Now, the song's intentions are a little trickier to discern. Like so much of The Navigator, it speaks to the ignored, the desperate queer kids hunting for a DIY sanctuary, even as they're roundly dismissed or just trampled underfoot. But the framing, it's not bleak, it's not desperate, it's hungry, it's infused with passion and wild-eyed intensity that will probably lead to reckless choices, sure, but they get the same right to make them as everybody else does. So yeah, it's an absolutely killer song, but on the flip side to this situation,
You won't save the night for me. You won't save the night for me. You won't save the night for me. And I ain't never gonna go home.
I don't think there's a way to fully appreciate this song without some of the history and context. And even then, I'm not sure it's enough, because the naysayers are right. Tove Lo has written this exact same concluding arc at least 3 times before, winding up back at the club to do drugs and escape into the night all over again. All dark electric pianos and overweight percussion with blurry fragments of trap hi-hats. And then we get to that bridge. Tove Lo slipped into her lower register, which she should really use more often as she tries to ask for drugs, but now she's built up a tolerance. The delirious escape has become mundane. It won't be enough anymore. It's the moment of clarity that strikes anybody who uses a substance to escape their emotions when they realize they have to face reality. No matter what hookup she's going to inevitably fall into next, she's going to be there for it. It's genuinely poignant in a way that Tove Lo has never quite been, even at her best. And it opens up possibilities for maturity and growth in an uncharacteristically beautiful way. It's a phenomenal moment and a truly excellent pop song.
How could anybody have you? How could anybody have you lose you? How could anybody have you lose you? Not lose their minds too. How could anybody have you? How could anybody have you lose you? How could anybody have you lose you? Not lose their minds too.
On the one side, you have an artist finding clarity. On the other, you have an artist accepting the loss of all of it. Yeah, this is the other pop song from St. Vincent to make this list, and it's a doozy. Seeing her confront the sterile but seductive plastic sheen of Los Angeles and rip away to expose the raging insecurity and instability beneath all of it. And what's telling is that she knows she can't really change all of it. Only ride the wave on a swamped out guitar contorting through layers of distortion, a razor-tight boiling groove, and one of the most haunting hooks you will hear all year, with the U involved representing Los Angeles, youth, or the pop iconography that gave her that sense of power and control that epitomizes this album. And when you couple it with an outro that spirals into a murk accented by mournful pedal steel and saxophone, you have the sort of misshapen, nightmarish pop song that St. Vincent infuses with impressive life this year. Terrific, powerful, but haunting as hell tune.
Shrug off the urge to systematically kill. Go rollerblading round Beverly Hills. Live each day like it's your last one.
Of course, the flip side to pop songs ripping their own guts out are when you find the bright side to all of it. And enter Kirin J. Callinan, one of the breakout acts of 2017, with a song that balances its sharp synthetic bounce and wonky guitar phrases with a huge hook that I absolutely adore. All against Callinan operating a surprisingly amount of restraint in his vocals. But it's the content of the song that I really do love, where Callinan embraces that pop psychology of living each day as if it's his last, with a sort of half confused yet completely sincere pathology that honestly feels kind of borderline romantic. The message could have come from his dying father or a fridge magnet. It can inspire him to go rollerblading, tell his girl that he loves her to go out to dance, or just to admit his passion for a truly excellent sandwich. But it keeps him from indulging his desire to kill people. That's probably worth it. Taking the dark side of asinine masculine tendencies and replacing it with something that's no less decisive and manly in a twisted way. Kind of awesome. It might not seem like pop music for everybody, but you know what? I think it very well could and should be.
And it hurts, but I don't wanna talk about it, 'cause in my dreams I miss you. Then I wake up to reality's bliss. Now all I ever wanted and all I ever needed is right here in the stranger's kiss.
The more I hear Alex Cameron's absolutely inspired duet with Angel Olsen, the more I'm blown away that it ever happened. The best song that Jim Steinman somehow never wrote. And what's mind-blowing about this power ballad is that it might as well be a love letter to this style of song in the 80s. There are the layers to this song. I mean, on the surface, it's two exes rubbing their newfound freedom in each other's faces with all the sex they're having. But what's telling is that Alex Cameron and Angel Olsen revealed between the lines that humanized them a lot and had some real pathos here. It rapidly becomes apparent that despite all of Alex Cameron's hyper-masculine posturing, he's still very much not over Angel Olsen. But at the same time, for as bitter as Olsen is about the whole situation, she sees right through him and has thoroughly dismissed it all and is trying to move on. There is a genuine pain for her that takes the song into much different, much more complex territory. No joke, her describing how they made a meme of her legacy is one of the most subtly tragic lyrics I've heard in a song all year, showing two thoroughly broken people trying to find any vestige of relief and release. Again, most of you have not heard Alex Cameron's stunning record Forced Witness this year. This is the highlight, and you're gonna want to fix that.
Now I'm here at your side. We try to rhyme our stride. head for supplies.
I'm almost a little bit at a loss why this song has resonated with me throughout so much, nearly the entire year. The guitars, they're rounded and subtle, the multi-tracking is gorgeous, but not really showy about it. And while there's definitely poetry in these lyrics, they're at their most potent when really they're the most straightforward. The quiet sort of late-night love song that shows partners knowing each other's rhythms so well, and even if there was something that was wrongly said or kind of misplaced, they're gonna find something better for it as they head off for supplies, whatever those might be. It's a song that has been in my own rotation for walking home at 2 a.m. for, again, nearly the entire year. That captures that sort of contentment which I think we all can really aspire. Elbow might have released a more potent song this year, and yes, we'll get to it, but this deep cut, I can see this becoming a favorite for fans and non-fans alike.
Can't go back to living in silence. No, I can't go back to sleeping alone. All the years you made me live as a liar ended up becoming all that I know.
Alright, look, I'm not sure I can probably explain how or why Def Havana's All These Countless Nights not only stuck with me in 2017, but actually got better with every single listen. Entirely too many rock critics just brushed it aside, and all due honesty, I probably should have too, given that this really isn't innovating or expanding upon their sound. But if I were to put forward a counterpoint, St. Paul's hits that sweet spot of melancholy for me in a way that few other songs did this year. Most because, as a love song, it comes with reconciling so many of one's own failures in full view. Because against that stunning liquid guitar line, our frontman is forced to throw all the caution to the wind and have to make that work, put it all on the line, for a girl who took all the steps to be with him, including moving halfway around the world, and it's him for finally finding some desperate core to do the same. Unflinchingly earnest and heartfelt that actually earns that perfectly timed guitar solo. It's a power ballad in every sense of the term, with the stakes and sincerity. It really stuck with me.
Thought I was the hero of your heart, but I turned out to be the breaker.
But let's move away from love songs to breakup songs, and my god, the title track from Little Big Town's newest album hits hard, from the perspective of the guy that's racked with guilt that he had to end the relationship. And not only does the framing of this song work, it can't entirely place the protagonist in a positive light, he did cause all this heartbreak, but it sticks with the moral complexity that happens when relationships, they have to end for all of the right reasons, even if, or especially if, they're painful. And yet, since this song doesn't frame either partner as the bad guy, it's all the more sad that he's so conscious of the pain that he's causing, and that some feelings of compassion for her still linger. The fact that Little Big Town of all bands wrote a song with this much grounded maturity and emotionally complex framing, all against a stunningly well-delivered hook from Philip Sweet and Jay Joyce at his most subtle as a producer, it's a marvel to behold. One of the few places where they earned that Fleetwood Mac comparison, and the fact that it went ignored by too many people, that's the real tragedy here.
You through the dark side of the morning. Who's gonna rock you when the sun won't let you sleep? Who's waking up to drive you home when you're drunk and all alone? Who's gonna walk you through the dark side of the morning?
I told you it was all gonna make this list. And given that I've already talked about this song on my list of the best hits of 2017, I'm gonna aim to keep this pretty brief. It's one of the best songs of the careers of Selena Gomez and Kygo respectively, or at the very least in their top 3 songs. A star-making turn with a terrific guitar-driven groove and pre-chorus, along with one of the year's best ever hooks. Selena Gomez sells the well-deserved end of this relationship with a perfect balance of disaffection and exhausted anger. The syncopation on the drop with the vocal samples is wonderful. And hey, since we're going through songs that already made my top 10 list,
It's the way you make me feel. It's real. We watch the sunset over the car, so lonely.
it's a damn tragedy that Ed Sheeran made a better U2 song than U2 did this year. And again, Castle on the Hill is among some of the best songs that Ed Sheeran has ever made. Is it better than A Fire of Love? I wouldn't go that far. But it's close with Lego House, and that's high praise indeed. But still, this was a hit that I never dared to dream to ask for, and that it did as well as it did on the charts is truly thrilling. More of this, less of perfect Ed Sheeran. We might be getting somewhere then. You know, I think pretty much everybody has admitted that that new record from Japandroids, Near to the Wild Heart of Life, didn't quite live up to all the hype, especially in the indie sphere. I mean, Celebration Rock was 5 years ago. It's hard to build up to that many long-built expectations. That said, their opening self-titled track to their album is concentrated Canadian wonderful, and I refuse to hear otherwise. Capturing the whirling panic that comes with a restless heart that's taking that step to move across the country and say all those goodbyes to an old home, and how trying that could be, even if it's the right step. And as a song, it's reckless as hell, taking a slow build into a monster hook with furious drum work and the language that captures the portent of this choice with the pure punk thrill of actually doing it. This is Japandroids swinging big for a tremendous anthem, and man alive, they stuck the landing.
I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. Cocaine quarter piece, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. I got hustle, though ambition, flow inside my DNA.
Again, I've already talked about this song too in my top 10, and yet the fact that DNA stands out so damn much for me is a testament to its tightness, its intensity, its intricacy, and Kendrick deciding to go into double time with ruthless effectiveness. And again, songs like this don't become hits and are a much better fit for really this list. But in terms of sheer bars and relentlessness, well-timed potency, they don't get that much better. I'm so happy I can put it on this list. You know, even when I reviewed Emily Haines and the Soft Skeletons' long overdue comeback earlier this year, I struggled to explain a lot of her fundamental appeal. Bare bones piano playing off steady rhythms and tightly multi-tracked husky vocals. It would seem kind of by the numbers or even conventional for modern indie pop, and yet Emily Haines transcended all of them, with stunning vocal arrangements and a taste for melodies that rather split the balance between meditative and downright hypnotic. Seriously, that piano line will stick in your mind and will never goddamn leave. Minefield of Memory has her insulating herself in a sanctum of her own thoughts and memories. And while she hasn't quite found a way to deal with the depths of the sins of her own just buried outside, she's found some form of center, and that's amazingly potent all the same. But you know, if we're talking about Canadians in times of great turbulence,
Suffering while out of conditions, forget your mission, just get out somehow.
okay, no, the new Pornographers minus Stan Behar did not deliver a classic record like I was hoping in 2017, but with the title track here, they caught the zeitgeist remarkably well regardless, hitting the pits of depression against frenetic guitars, a charging groove, and the gleaming sheen of those keyboards that only drives the melody and terrific multi-tracking all the further, with two distinctive hooks because apparently they didn't think the damn song was infectious and catchy enough. AC Newman, Catherine Calder, and Nico Case exchange an admission that they didn't find any damn center whatsoever. They just need to get through it however they possibly can. The deeper poignancy, it's not coming. There's nothing romantic about it. If you want to get out of all of it this safe and mostly sane, you need to embrace pragmatism. Trust me when I say that in 2017, that was a message that clicked way better than I personally was expecting. Not so much of an activist anthem per se, so much as just the survivors, but man alive, it clicked, it worked.
I see the sun go down, I see the sun come up, I see a reef upon the grave. Oh, this dream, no lie.
So I I said from the very beginning that there wasn't a lot of escapism on this list, and this is the exception. And yet, even with that, it is a qualified one. Riff comes near the climatic turning point on No Shape, as Mike Hadrius takes his characteristic discomfort with his afflicted physical body and yearns for something all the more transcendent, all against a surging swell of gauzy strings as his core that echoes off that booming bass and guitar punctuation. A sort of gorgeously layered production that hits the precise balance between raw humanity and a drive to blow clean past it, hitting the sort of clear, almost overwhelmingly romantic beauty that characterized the best moments of No Shape. It is truly breathtaking. The entire album is stunning, but this song might just be the zenith.
Am I just living in the space between the beauty and the pain? In the real thing.
You know, I think even folks who didn't like the newest War on Drugs record, they like this song. And that's because, really, it does everything that makes the War on Drugs such a deeply potent indie rock band. The exposed edges of the guitar against the gauzy liquid layers against hints of harmonica keening over that expanse, with a real obvious debt to Springsteen and Mellencamp and the rest of the 80s heartland rock scene that always found more depth than they often got credit. And you know what? That depth is there, but it's between the lines, of course. Adam Granducio's writing is always a little bit more subtext than outright text, as he tries to find some place of balance in the mist between acknowledging the stunning beauty around him and the pain of never really being able to capture all of it the way he wanted. But let's get real. This song is on the list for that guitar solo after the drum kick ending the bridge, a stunning instrumental tour de force that's reminiscent of In Reverse 3 years ago in the best possible way, probably even better. It might not be as instantly memorable as the hook on Red Eyes, but it is a masterwork all the damn same.
I've traveled around and I ain't found nobody quite like you. And is all this living meant to be, or a happy accident? Well, in my heart you pay no rent. Well, in my heart you pay no rent.
This was the year I became most acquainted with the Turnpike Troubadours, and while a good 4 or 5 songs had a serious shot for this list, this was the one that finally won out for me. Half because the restrained but wonderfully organic mid-tempo country hit just a great sweet spot, especially with that pedal steel and real organic fiddle. Half because the lyrics balanced out the powerfully specific as a tribute to the songwriter's late aunt, but also universal in capturing all those little details of the bar girl, for whom the connection might not be exactly reciprocated, but the place of quiet affection, it's resonant all the same. And I'm gonna stop right there in case the person, for me, in that situation sees this video. Suffice to say, it's a quietly brilliant country tune showcasing all the maturity and poise that the Turnpike Troubadours refined this year. And yeah, goes without saying, you should check out their newest album. It did not get enough attention, and this song in particular deserves it.
I hope you find your peace, falling on your knees, praying.
Surprise, I know. But look, a song like Praying makes this list because it really is that goddamn potent. And again, it's not even the best song from Rainbow, and we will get to that later. But even still, between Kesha's masterfully organic and raw performance to writing that balances out righteous fury with a reclamation of personal worth, all gets a beautifully organic build-up and a fantastic hook, it's a song that got Kesha, of all people, Grammy nominations. Hey, you know what? They got it right this time. And really, for a song like this and an album like Rainbow, she truly deserves it. I'm so proud of her.
It wouldn't give us any closure. All cowboys need to trust that this town might be big enough for both of us.
You know what? I liked this song before I saw the meme. And really, that's kind of overshadowed how goddamn brilliant Big Enough is, in placing Alex Cameron and Kirin Callinan both as lone wolf cowboys eyeing each other across that waste, before coming to the acceptance that, yeah, the world is indeed big enough for the both of them. And yeah, it's over the top. It's wonderfully absurd, and altogether deserving of the ridiculous screaming cowboy in the sky, but thematically, it is the centerpiece of bravado, an acknowledgement acknowledgement of masculine power while throwing aside all of those arrogant posturing in favor of a universality that runs so much bigger with real populism. Come up with a perfectly timed fiddle and the fusion of bombastic electronic elements with the key-shifting genius of Callinan's composition. It is a star-making turn for everybody involved, and at least for me, in popular, it's not quite big enough. Not quite yet, anyways.
Through it all, we're standing tall, and I just don't say it enough. If not for you, no, we wouldn't be standing at all.
So if you had told me last year that a pop-punk band was gonna write their version of Alan Jackson's Remember When and give it the same lived-in pathos and power, I probably would have called you crazy. But yeah, neck deep they did it. The guitar tone that evolved and picked up more layers with the passage of more years, the harmonies that feel perfectly balanced and yet pull back just enough to capture that lonely pain at the emotional climax of the song, and production that gave the song just enough space to really swell and take on the entire form of grandeur of that life from beginning to end, especially on the third verse of that richer lower guitar tone before the bridge accented with a tremolo strumming that can make this straightforward bombast. It clicked for me. Yeah, not a complicated song, but like the best pop punk, doesn't need to be to have that emotional impact. Neck deep, they knocked it out of the park with this one. Truly one of their best.